The reward for figuring out how to do something, the reward for getting to high stakes, is that you can afford to sit in and play those high stakes games. So you want to become a version of yourself you're excited to be. You want to enjoy playing whatever game you're playing. You want poker to fit into your life and enable you to live life on your terms, I would say. For some people, that means playing poker 60 hours a week, all night, at least for a few years. And if that's what you enjoy, perfect. Like, set it up for that. But what I find is a lot of people don't get clear on this in advance. And they start to bend their life, bend their actions and their plans and their goal setting around becoming whoever they think will make the most money. In the pursuit of that, you get pulled in all sorts of crazy, imbalanced, sort of insane, unsustainable directions. Like, people will play more hours even if they don't have much edge when they're tired. They'll play schedules that mean that they don't have time to study anymore, so they're never getting better as a player. They'll get into really soft games or like app games, only play fish or never play fish, trying to meet some ideal of, I want to be the strongest player in the world. I want to be the richest player in the world. And why I'm bringing this up is you can avoid that if you check in with yourself now. What do you really value? What do you really like? How do you want to feel? How can you enjoy each step on the path as much as you can? It's not always going to be sunshine and roses. It can hurt a lot of the time. But how can you avoid unnecessary suffering and really love the process? Because if you get to the point where you're excited to just wake up and be a poker player today, you don't need to win or lose anymore. It's not about the results. You become sort of untouchable. You have this inevitability, this momentum, because if you love the game and you're working with the right resources, with the right people, and you're playing profitably, it's just an upward spiral. It really is a thing where once you know how to win and keep growing, and you're like self-aware enough to basically just not repeat bad patterns, and you're open enough to pick up new patterns, new healthier patterns, get rid of bad thoughts, learn new positive lines at the table, quit sessions earlier, stop self-sabotaging. Once you cut out the stuff that's kind of obvious and really silly to people around you, or really obvious and silly to you, once you've been able to step back and examine your behavior, when you're actually just acting in your best interest and discarding the negativity, discarding the ineffective action, you just inevitably will become what you're trying to become. So once you know that's inevitable and actually kind of simple, especially like, I want to win at poker, I want to make $100 an hour playing poker, that is really simple. It's really easy, assuming you have money to start. The hardest thing is like if you're broke to begin. Good luck, don't play poker. Don't play poker or have it be a hobby until you have money. Don't try to like get your initial money playing poker. But if you have like 10 grand plus like 6 months or a year's expenses set aside, then I think pretty much anyone in America could make 100 an hour playing poker, like anyone who is suited to it. There's a lot of video games like Elden Ring, Magic the Gathering, Hearthstone. These games are pretty much harder than poker. So once you know that that's easy, yeah, what else do you want? How do you get it without hurting yourself, without sacrificing your health, without sacrificing your relationships? Part of why I came to this advice, and I'm recommending it so explicitly, is I often didn't prioritize my relationships, or I let things get out of balance. And I made that as a conscious decision that for the first year or two, I think was necessary and helpful. And I was isolated anyway. It wasn't because of poker, but I was just all in on the game. There were points where I would basically put all of my energy, all my care and attention into poker, and none of it into other aspects of my life. So it was sort of like, if poker's going well, that's all I care about. So I started having good results and I felt great about it. But then increasingly with that imbalance, with only caring about and investing in poker and sort of trying to put everything else on the back burner or maintenance mode, there just is an emotional imbalance that can build up. You can never just like fix that with the money. You'll get where you're going faster if you're not burning out. If you love the life you're living, you're not in a rush to get anywhere. You're no longer so reactive because you're calm and you're just seeing things clearly and you can just take the best action and keep learning. You're really, really receptive. You're really caring. You're really paying attention. It is worth taking as much time as you need to get there, but you can also move towards that without running from the world and disengaging. In fact, I'd say you need a balance of both. But doing something like setting aside 15 minutes a day where you just do nothing and you just sit and you just feel your feelings and you just, without trying to change anything, just really get in touch with what's going on in your life and your experience and just be really, really honest with yourself with no agenda. Face up to yourself. Can you at least be honest with yourself and not try to change anything? Because we'll run away from uncomfortable stuff that we don't know how to solve. Where, like, there's 2 bad outcomes, or you regret taking so long to call somebody, or there's a bunch of hands to review and you know there's some lessons there, but you get kind of overwhelmed when you try to study. But if you can just sit and go, oh wow, I'm afraid, I don't know what to do or what's going to happen. When you can accept that and be honest about that and start from there, then you actually have the capacity to find the answer. If you are asking bullshit questions, going in random directions to distract yourself from the fact that you're scared and don't know what to do, you'll just walk randomly, probably in circles, until you get sick of it and hopefully you get on the path again. So there's why do I play poker? Let that be your North Star. Like, you're trying to day to day experience, taste, live, embody your ideal poker self. And I would extend your ideal poker self just to, just living well on the whole. Just trust yourself on that one. Then what game am I looking to crush? I'm assuming that we're just trying to make as much money as we can at the table while also like having a good time. My view is that these things actually go together. I'm not even asking you to like trade profit. What I'm saying is if you prioritize short-term results too often, it will usually cost you more money in the medium to long term. Say you play 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day, you could probably like cut 20% of your volume and not hurt your win rate. Just because some of that energy would lead to you playing better or thinking at a higher level. Some of it would be time you spend calling someone who might invite you to a good game down the road. All of these little things add up, so don't get too stuck in the poker loop. If you don't know if you're winning, play the highest stakes that you're like comfortable losing a lot in. Like, say you lose like 50 buy-ins or whatever. Like tuition money, basically. So if you're a new player, just play the lowest stakes you possibly can. And then play it until you know you're winning by a lot. Because if you can't crush 5-L, you're not going to beat the rake at like 50-L. So just crush through that stake. Then once you know you're winning, once you see you're crushing, test the next limit and basically see if anything's changed. Usually there's going to be 1 or 2 things you learn because people at the next limit are a bit better. 5-L isn't that different from 50-L. You're just probably going to have like less people who are completely tilting their mind off and shoving all in every hand. But that's still going to happen a lot. And so when there is that much free money for the player who can stay solid, it's just like knowing the fundamentals. You still don't need a solver up to that point. High stakes online is a different skill set to even like 2040 live. What you need to know in terms of technical skill, in terms of GTO, in terms of balance, versus just exploit, how good you need to be, how hard you need to study, that depends on, you and your abilities and your approach, of course, but also really depends on the game, like the level of the game. So you have to define what it is. You have to figure out what you believe you need to do to be the most successful or as successful as you can be there, to like really be excited about it. You plan your study, exactly what you work on and what you prioritize around that. That's where a coach who has like experience with a lot of formats or your specific format can help you a lot. I think this is an area I personally excel at because I've worked with so many clients from just all different backgrounds, States, Euro, Australia, high stakes online, small stakes online, people starting at micro stakes and working their way up to high stakes, people looking to go beyond a data-driven system, playing live myself, traveling around and doing that. I final tabled a WPT in Sydney, 2100 buy-in, 6-max online ignition, where I was winning $1 a hand over a large sample. I set everything around crushing 1 and 2K and L on ignition. So I studied all the clairvoyant hands. I talked with other high-stakes ignition players. I developed game plans against the pool. I figured out the conditions. There was a point where I was winning 15 to 25 big blinds per 100 at 2K and L because I'd often have a fish at the table. And I was turning some of the regs into fish because they were taking such exploitative lines at that time. Any deliberate learning process like that, but ideally tailored to actually like making you money. Like if you're not already making a shitload of money in poker, beating fish and beating amateur regs. And if you are an amateur reg or how to beat them, you are an amateur reg. It's literally a specific set of strategies that is still holding true. There's really, really systematic, consistent things that humans struggle with and they have to work to overcome. They have to counteract with heuristics and understanding how the game works and challenging things around pot odds, challenging fear of aggression, fear of bluff catching and being wrong, basically overfolding and not being aggressive enough in general. Just to be as aggressive as theory says is really uncomfortably difficult, and most of the time you want to be more aggressive than that against a real human opponent. And people simply aren't doing that. So that opportunity is still wide open. And obviously you can't just hear that and start bluffing everywhere crazy random. Obviously there's a lot of nuance to that. But that's the direction you need to be looking in. You should be assuming that you're not aggressive enough or that you're clownishly over-aggressive. So yeah, the EQ process, first is have a game plan. I'd say that's a thesis, that's a strategy. Basically knowing what you're doing and why, at least well enough that when you review, you can say, I know why I did that, I know what I was thinking, and then ask yourself, would you do it again or would you change something? Having good reasons for why you're doing what you're doing. That might be, I'm range betting flop because I need to keep the game tree small because there's just too many options and betting multiple sizes makes the game way too complicated, so I'm just range betting a third, and that's good enough at low stakes. That's a good reason. It's not a high level reason, but it's an honest reason. And there's a higher level incentive to do that, is that it lets you focus on what matters, which is playing turns and rivers properly. Because if you can even just play turn to set up for the river properly, you're thinking one step ahead. You are thinking about how your turn strategy changes your river strategy. That is already so much to work with. And most players don't actually get to a clear level even there. Knowing where you're planning to overbluff because people fold too much. Knowing how to get the most value with your hands against weak players. Because if you know how to beat the weak players, that's a good enough reason, right? My game plan is everyone here's a fish. They're all playing too many hands pre-flop. I'm going to play most of the good hands. I'm going to learn to like get paid with my value. You can make 100 an hour conservatively, but if you just do that, you're going to be capped against the regs who know what they're doing. So then you need to learn how to do that. You see what I mean? But you have your game plan. You have what you're trying to do. Something defined enough that you can honestly tell yourself, am I sticking to the plan or am I just doing random shit? Second thing is benchmarking. That's quantifying the game plan. So that can be just seeing that your turn barrel is really low. So you need to have at least 60% turn barrel. Otherwise, you are not bluffing enough. Cool, let me keep an eye on that. Next month you check, did the bluffing frequency go up? Did your betting frequency go up in that spot? So you can see you can do that at a really high level with like hand to note, crazy data level analysis, millions of hands. You can also just do it on that. Like I'm looking to bet turn more. I'm looking to give up river bluffs less. I'm looking to bet bigger with my value in this spot. I'm looking to practice flop check raising. And then just check, are you doing it more or not? Leak area and focus list, that's the same thing. It's the things you are going to bother benchmarking. Implementation is, where is that going wrong? If you're not betting turn more, what's still hard about it? Do you need to understand the strategy? Do you just need to get over the discomfort of doing it and get a few reps in before like it feels safe to do it? Then there's review, just literally seeing how you played and how it worked. You usually need a lot of hands for that, but like you can immediately review after the session, okay, I'm looking at check raise flop with backdoor flush draws more often. Once you have a lot of hands, then you can also get the proof that you were looking for that the line was better than what you were doing before. But you're probably going to need 100 or like 200 hands to know whether check raising flop is better or not results-wise. But you see what I mean? You have like a theory and an understanding. You can check immediately. Then over time, you get a sample. And usually we use a mix of these things, especially in exploitative poker. We're just taking educated guesses. It's not a black and white thing. You take a good guess and you try to explore that opportunity. And the better it seems, the more sustainable it is, the more you do it. This sort of review, this sort of questioning yourself, leaves room open to uncertainty. But I think that's where you start is, I am making mistakes. I'm not making the perfect play. I'm making the best plays I can right now. And I need to understand where I'm misperceiving things and where I'm doing things exactly right. How can I improve my perception? How can I improve my accuracy? How can I overcome my current deficits, basically? But you're always just doing your best and moving forward. And that's the exciting thing, is you get to play from that place. You're exactly where you need to be to play as well as you can right now. You don't need to know anything else to play as well as you can right now. And even your mistakes, or the lost hands, which might not even be mistakes, they're the best play you can make right now. So you can almost delete mistake from your mind, or at least reframe, like, it sounds tacky, but reframe mistake as opportunity. Mistake is a missed take. So what's your new take? Oh, I made a mistake. In hindsight, now that I've learnt from that mistake, I would do this thing. This is my new take. So it's only a problem if you don't actually integrate and learn from the feedback. Mistakes can make you stronger or they can make you weaker. Are you holding them and defending them or avoiding them? Or are you taking the lesson